It is the Beach Break edition of your AEW Dynamite review. And the waves are crashing. Beautiful. I didn't know it was this beautiful in Chicago, of all places. I don't know why they did a Beach Break show in Chicago, but that's where they were tonight for the Beach Break episode of Dynamite. In a main event of Samoa Joe challenging Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. I think we all knew how this match was going to go. I don't even think the family of Samoa Joe expected him to walk out with the AEW World Championship, but we got a chaotic finish at the end of the show that did set up Anarchy in the Arena for Double or Nothing. Now, coming into this show tonight, we had 2 matches announced for Double or Nothing at the end of this month. Both of those matches were the finals of the Owen Hart tournament, one on the men's side, one on the women's side. And that's it. We had nothing else announced. We are less than 2 weeks away from what had traditionally been one of the biggest AEW pay-per-views of the year, and we knew nothing about this show. So it was imperative tonight that they set up at least a couple of big matches for this show. And that is what they did at the end of Dynamite tonight. Jon Moxley, still the AEW World Champion. Surprise, surprise. I know you're all shocked by that. But when the show was over, it was the babyfaces standing tall in the ring, led by one Swerve Strickland. And it appears, now we know that Anarchy in the Arena is taking place. What we do not know is what the configuration of the match is going to be. We saw a bunch of people out there. The numbers don't really add up, and there was a combination of male and female stars out there. So what it appears is that on the babyface side, we have Swerve Strickland, we have Kenny Omega, we have Samoa Joe, we had Powerhouse Hobbs out there, and we had Willow Nightingale out there. So there was no Katsuyori Shibata. Hook did not make his return tonight as far as the ops is concerned. But Willow was out there with them. And before I even go on any further, I should mention, because Willow has been in the news lately, that her contract with AEW is coming due, or was rumored to be coming due, I think, later this year. There was a report apparently from Fightful that Willow Nightingale has signed a new multi-year deal to stay with AEW, which doesn't surprise me in the least. There's been a lot of talk about Mariah May and what she's going to do, and I think Mariah May is a very good chance she's leaving. But nothing's been said about her lately. But Willow, when I heard that Willow was coming up and she was potentially going to be a free agent, honestly, I didn't really expect her to be going anywhere. So that's not really a big shock to me. But apparently she is going to be all elite for quite a few more years. So we saw her out there. And then also on the heel side, what we saw Jon Moxley. We saw the Young Bucks, who came out when the match was over, after we saw Gabe Kidd from New Japan Pro Wrestling, who's made one or two appearances before in AEW. We haven't seen him very often. And oddly enough, the same Gabe Kidd who was on opposing sides with the Young Bucks at the New Japan Resurgence show last Friday. So they were opponents. They were on opposite sides of the ring. And now apparently they're all aligned on the same side, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but okay. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure. They haven't really established why all of the heels are working together in the way that they are. The Bucks and the Death Riders, and now Gabe Kidd is out there. So they're going to have to do a little bit of a better job of fleshing all that out. But what the actual configuration of the match is going to be, is Marina Shafir going to be in there, and Willow, which is kind of interesting. I think if you want to have the women as part of Anarchy in the Arena, I think that could be fun. That's something different. But we still have to wait and see exactly who's going to be involved in that match. But yes, Jon Moxley, his run continues. His reign will continue until Texas, when Will Ospreay dethrones him. And we're going to have to wait until then, at the earliest, for a new AEW World Champion. And even that's not a guarantee. MJF got his answer tonight. He's been wanting to join the Hurt Syndicate. Bobby Lashley's been making him sweat. So we finally got an answer tonight as to whether or not MJF is in or out of the Hurt Syndicate. And it appears he is in, or is he? It's not a done deal yet. There's going to be a contract signing on the show next week. Something will go very wrong. What will happen? I don't know. We'll talk about what the possibilities are. Toni Storm finally has her challenger for the AEW Women's World title at Double or Nothing. She's been having eliminator match after eliminator match after eliminator match every single week. And so now she has a challenger for her championship at Double or Nothing. Like I said, that card had 2 matches announced officially coming into tonight. And the number one goal of this show, for me anyway, coming into this show, was to make sure that when we came out of this show, we had some new matches added to the card, and we do. So now we have 4 matches. Instead of 2, we have 4. It's multiplied. But still, like, I look at this Double or Nothing card, the way that it looks, Double or Nothing this year just feels very uninspired. It feels like a dress rehearsal for Texas in July. Like, that's the big show that they're building to. And so in the meantime, everything else, as they continue to build to Arlington, just feels very secondary. And Double or Nothing should never really feel secondary, but it does. And there's going to be some great matches on the card, even just in the Owen. Not saying there's not going to be great matches. Just very uninspired is how this card is looking right now. As far as this show tonight, it was a special episode of Dynamite. I thought it was a solid show. It was not a great show. I didn't hate all of the chaos that we had at the very end of the show. I'm just, again, confused about how some of the pieces fit together, especially when it comes to those on the heel side. But we'll go through everything here in this review because this is your Beach Break review. I had to save somebody who was drowning. That's why it took a few extra minutes for me to come on live tonight. I had to play lifeguard. I had to grab my trusty towel here. Nobody told me that it was going to be this cool here in Chicago in May. I don't know why they did Beach Break in Chicago. I'm still a little confused about why this had to be Beach Break. And next month, I think they're doing Fight for the Fallen. How come this couldn't be Fight for the Fallen? And you do Beach Break from a warmer location somewhere in June? I don't know. I don't book the shows. I'm the wrong one to ask because I'm not the one booking these sites and booking these shows. This is your Beach Break Dynamite review for May 14th, 2025. I am the Solomonster. Thank you for joining me here. Solomonster swims off I might before this review is over. Enjoy the scenery in the meantime. Like and subscribe. Super chats are open. You will see them popping up on your screen as we go along. And I will be reading all of your messages a little bit later on here in the stream. I do want to mention, though, before we get into the actual review, little programming note. Tomorrow, noon Eastern time, I'm going to be joining Wrestle Purists live on their YouTube channel. What are we going to be talking? I don't know. We're going to be talking pro wrestling. There's no format. I don't know what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the news of the week. So you can find me there. Noon Eastern time, live on YouTube. Solomonster on Wrestle Purists for the first time on YouTube. So if it's the middle of your day, you're going to be having lunch, grab lunch and check out Solomonster. You get another show. Are you sick of me yet? If not, you will be. So we'll do that tomorrow. But let's talk about this show. They were in Chicago tonight, as I mentioned, because when I think of the beach, I think of the Windy City. It is quite windy. I've been there twice now in the last 2 weeks. Chicago, I love you. But if I was going to hit the beach, I can think of some nicer places I would be. Ian Riccaboni joined Excalibur and Taz on commentary for the show tonight. They opened with Will Ospreay and Hangman Adam Page, who are going to be on opposing sides at Double or Nothing. They're in the finals of the men's Owen Hart tournament. One of those two men will challenge Jon Moxley for the AEW World title in July in Arlington. But until then, they had to coexist on this show as tag team partners. And they took on Konosuke Takeshita and Josh Alexander of the Callis family with these four guys in this match. From the moment they announced it last week, I mean, it's impossible to conceive that this would be a bad match, right? This cannot be anything but at least a very good match, which it was. Riccaboni pointed out that the only blemish on Ospreay's record so far this year was a tag team loss a few weeks ago to the Callis family. So Ospreay and Takeshita, they kicked things off. Really quick opening sequence. Alexander tagged in. Ospreay was about to tag in Hangman. There was a little bit of a delay that allowed Alexander to hit a flapjack. But Ospreay did get the tag to Hangman Page. And they were working pretty well together for the most part. Page seemed a little hesitant to tag in Ospreay, but he did. And the two of them hit a sliding lariat / shooting star combo. Ospreay got backdropped to the floor by the heels, and Takeshita connected on a somersault dive onto the two baby faces, and that took us into the first commercial break. So the Callis family, they isolated Hangman, and he woke up after Josh Alexander was slapping him around a little bit in the face. That woke him up. Ankle lock applied. Page, though, kicked free. Alexander collided with his partner. That allowed Ospreay to make the tag. So we got a double handspring Pele kick that led to a standing Skye Twister press on Alexander for a 2 count. Hangman decked Takeshita with a big boot, and there was a little bit of a stare down here between the baby faces. Then they each went to opposing corners, and they hit stereo moonsaults onto the heels on the floor. And then Ospreay patted Hangman on the head like he was a dog. Good boy. Role model. So he patted him on the head. Back inside, Alexander fought off a Stormbreaker and countered a handspring into a spinning torture rack slam for a 2 count. Takeshita tagged in. He hit a big elbow and then followed up with a Blue Thunder Bomb and a Brainbuster. Hangman had to break up that pin. Alexander entered. He hit a release German on Hangman. Takeshita and Alexander, they hit stereo ripcord elbows to Ospreay. Wasn't enough. 2.5 only. So now we're going into the finish here. Ospreay hits an Os cutter on Takeshita and Alexander. Hangman tagged himself in, much to Ospreay's dismay. He was not happy about this, but Hangman was trying to tell him, look, there, go after Alexander. So there was a bunch of miscommunications here with them. Ospreay and Page, though, they almost hit each other. There was actually a great spot here where Ospreay came charging in, and he was going for the hidden blade, and he stopped just short of Hangman's face. Like there was an inch or two between his elbow pad and Hangman's nose. And they just had this intense stare down there briefly, but they regrouped and they hit a buckshot lariat hidden blade combo on Josh Alexander, which was pretty cool. And they got the win. I guess, what do you want to call it? The buckshot blade? Is that what we're going to call it? Sure, why not? So after the match, Paige and Ospreay, they were having a face-off when Takeshita and Alexander, they attacked. Ospreay fought back with a hidden blade on Alexander, suplexed to Takeshita, and he swung wildly with a forearm. And he decked Hangman by accident. And Bryce Remsburg had to separate both men. Ospreay was saying he thought it was Alexander. He didn't mean to do it. But he stormed to the back when Hangman didn't want to hear any of it. So it was an excellent opener. Again, impossible to think that these four would have anything but a very good match. They were doing the old, can they coexist? Can they coexist? Storyline. The answer is yes for the most part. And then things fell apart at the very end, which had to be expected. I mean, you knew that was going to end that way anyway, because these two men are headed for a match at Double or Nothing, and there is a shot at the AEW World title on the line. So you would think that there's going to be some kind of intense, I don't know if they're going to do a contract signing. It's kind of official. Or I don't even know that you really need a contract signing. I mean, they're in the finals of the tournament. But we have, is it one more? I think it's one more Dynamite. Let me check here. Yeah, it's one more. So we got one more Dynamite. We should have some sort of face-to-face promo involving these two, or even like a sit-down. I wouldn't mind that. Even if it wasn't in front of the live crowd. Have Renee do a sit-down interview with the two of them. But this was great stuff. Then we had Ricochet, one-on-one against Zach Gowen. Now, if you were not watching Collision, and I'm sure that's a decent number of you in the chat right now, if you did not see Collision, you're wondering, wait, what? Who? The one-legged guy from Ruthless Aggression? Yes, that's Zach Gowen from 2003 SmackDown. He was on Collision this past week. There was an angle. He was a guest in the audience. And Ricochet had a match. I think it was against Serpentico. Doesn't matter. So when the match was over, he had his golden scissors. And I think he was going to cut the hair. To cut this guy's hair, what's left of it.
Fuck that tree.
Solomonster looks like a member of the Ops. Well, you know what? I guess, yeah, Samoa Joe does this, right? With the towel around the neck. I just came out of the water, though. I'm all cold right now. I'm all shriveled. Well, won't get into that. But anyway, what I was saying is he had the golden scissors. Ricochet did. And I think he was about to cut the hair of one of the security guards. So, Zach Gowen had seen enough. And so he got involved and, made the save. But Ricochet beat him up and he ripped off his leg because he's got the prosthetic leg. So he ripped off Zach's leg and he left with it. He stole it's technically his property. He stole his property and he left with his leg. This is the second angle in the last several weeks involving a prosthetic leg. And I know it really wasn't I shouldn't even say angle. It was a spot in a match, in the TLC match that was unplanned, but the second prosthetic leg spot that we've had on a wrestling show in the last few weeks. One of my favorite stories, whenever I think of Zach Gowen, I can't not think of John Laurinaitis and what just an absolute moron he is for so many different reasons. But the famous story of him, they wanted a one-legged guy and he signed the wrong one-legged wrestler. I don't remember the guy's name. It doesn't matter. But Zach Gowen was the guy they were looking for, that they were interested in, and evidently he signed the wrong one-legged wrestler. Only John Laurinaitis. So Gowen, who of course is mostly remembered, I think, for the beatdown that he took from Brock Lesnar many years ago, and he was thrown down a flight of stairs. They may have used a stand-in for that actual spot. But that's what I remember. Brock Lesnar beat him up in front of his mom, F5'd him into the ring post. That was actually a pretty intense angle with him and Brock back then. As I recall, I think Brock was supposed to F5 him off the SmackDown fist. And that never happened. That would have been interesting. So they had a match here. Gowen did a spring. Now, I should mention Ricochet came out with the leg. Gowen had crutches and hobbled to the ring. but he wrestled on one leg. He did a springboard splash to the floor. It will never cease to amaze me when I see him doing, not just wrestling a match even, but like the stuff he does. He's doing dives, he's doing moonsaults with one leg. It impressed me 22 years ago, and it's still very impressive to see it. He grabbed a headlock, he delivered some strikes, Ricochet broke free, and shoved him into the barricade right in front of someone who the announcers identified as Gowen's son. So Ricochet got control during the break. He hit a big 450 as the show came back. Gowen kicked out at 2.5. Then he landed a shooting star press. Ricochet did. Got the same result. Then he delivered his Vertigo finish. Although I guess he's not using Vertigo as his full-time finish anymore. But nonetheless, he uses Vertigo. And again, Zach Gowen kicks out. Now, I don't know what's really accomplished by having him kick out of all of these big moves. Because he's wrestling one match here. That's it. But he's kicking out of everything. So he kicks out of Vertigo. Ricochet shows frustration. He pulls out the golden scissors, which are tucked away under one of the turnbuckles. Rick Knox actually catches this. He grabs the scissors away, and he goes to dispose of them. And with that distraction, Gowen picks up his own prosthetic leg, and he smashes Ricochet with it. And he covers him, but only gets a near fall. Gowen then went up for a big moonsault. Ricochet was able to get out of the way, and he followed up with the Spirit Gun, and he picked up the win. And when the match was over, Ricochet continued the attack. He hit another Spirit Gun, and out comes Mark Briscoe. And he runs out to the ring. Ricochet bails, and that was the end of that. I mean, look, I don't know that this is leading to anything beyond what we saw tonight. We had seen some interaction with Ricochet and Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight now is in Japan for the Best of the Super Juniors. And I think the Best of the Super Juniors isn't done until the beginning of June. So Ricochet now just feels like somebody who they don't really know what to do with. Maybe when Kevin Knight gets back, they'll link the two of them back up. But in the meantime, it's like, well, we got to come up with something for this guy to do. How can we put heat on him? Oh, I know. We'll have him beat up a one-legged man and steal his leg. And that'll get heat on Ricochet. So now he beat the one-legged man. And now I guess we're going to get Ricochet and Mark Briscoe. It's like, whatever. Okay. Is this really the only idea they have for Ricochet? It seems like kind of a waste. It's just sort of floating around. There's nothing really substantial that he happens to be involved in right now. But again, maybe they're just waiting for Kevin Knight to come back. As a match, I thought this was fine. We had Renee in the back with MJF. She wants to know how MJF is going to feel if he actually gets a thumbs up tonight from the Hurt Syndicate. He says, for 400 days, you had to admit that MJF was the best thing walking this earth. Times have changed, though, since then. To be all elite means more now. He loves to work. That was funny. That's funny. He loves to work. Nobody works harder and more matches than MJF does. And he says he doesn't want to take shortcuts. If he joins the Hurt Syndicate, him being a two-time AEW World Champion is not a probability. It is a reality. So the Hurt Syndicate arrives, and MVP says that after their match, which is coming up next, it is imperative that MJF join them in the ring. And MJF looks very concerned by this. He looks very concerned. He's actually speechless. And even Renee smiles and pats him on the shoulder, as if to say, good luck, buddy. And so up next, we had the Hurt Syndicate, and they were out for a match against Top Flight. Bobby Lashley was out wearing a t-shirt that had a hand on it with a thumbs down gesture, which seemed to be an ominous sign for MJF later. There was a quick double team DDT here by Darius and Dante on Shelton Benjamin before they took out Lashley with a drop kick on the apron. Dante went for a dive. Lashley caught him. So Darius dove onto the pile to take Lashley off his feet. Dante tried another dive on Lashley, who caught him in midair and posted him. Benjamin launched Darius with a suplex and then to the floor against the barricade. It was mostly destruction here for Top Flight. I mean, this went maybe 5 minutes. Lashley destroyed Dante with a spear, and then he applied the Hurt Lock until Dante passed out. That's it. And the issue with the Hurt Syndicate is this. The Hurt Syndicate is one of the most popular attractions on the entire show. They're dominant. They walk out there. It's the same thing when we had the Hurt Business in WWE. They have this cool factor about them when they walk out there. And like I said, they're dominant. They win all of their matches, and the people like to sing their song and chant their song. So you say, well, what's the issue? They're over, right? Yeah, well, they're so over that they just destroy everybody else. And so they've been champions now for several months, and every team basically that they've been in the ring with, like, nobody cares, and they dominate them and they beat them, and then they move on. And it's like, well, who's next? You know, you have FTR who just went heel, and FTR is involved in a totally different, totally, frankly, irrelevant story right now. We'll get to them later. Who else is there? You know, the Young Bucks are involved in this main event storyline. And frankly, I have no interest in seeing the Young Bucks back in the AEW tag team title picture anytime soon. Keep them far away from the Hurt Syndicate. Keep them far away from those titles. But they go out there and they, whether it's Top Flight and even some of these teams, I mean, we're going to talk about this now. My God, Bobby Lashley here, right? He puts him back in the Hurt Lock. Or actually, he won't release the hold is what happens. He will not release the hold. And so who comes out? We have the Ring of Honor tag team champions, Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. And they make their way out. So Lashley finally releases the hold. Rhodes says Lashley doesn't look like a badass. He looks like an asshole. Why don't you pick on someone your own size? So MVP said that with the respect he has for Dustin and with the respect that he has for Dustin's father, he's not going to have his guys beat them up and leave them in a pool of blood. MVP asked, what do you want? And Dustin said, well, isn't it obvious? Then they all were interrupted by the Crew. That's CRU. That is Lio Rush and Action Andretti. And nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. But they walked out. Andretti kept calling Dustin Gramps. He said that they'll rearrange Guevara's face before sending him home to his little daughter. They said they have business with the Hurt Syndicate, and they also beat Top Flight. Lio Rush brought up his history with Bobby Lashley, which, like, I forgot about, but yes, that's right. There actually is history here with Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley. This takes us back to the days where Bobby Lashley was sent out there by Vince McMahon every week on Raw to bend over and smack his own ass, which I'm sure Vince got off on. I wouldn't be surprised if Vince named one of his sex toys after the Almighty. I'm sure that one was in his collection as well. So yes, there is a history here between these two men, which I had completely forgotten about. But they said they wanted a title shot. And Dustin said no. He said there's no cutting the line. Now I'm looking at the Ring of Honor tag team champions standing out there. I'm looking at the AEW tag team champions standing out there, and I'm thinking, are they going to do some kind of unification here? Like, what are we looking at here? Not that that would be a bad idea, to be honest with you. But MVP had enough of this. I mean, they're going back and forth, and Dustin is saying, you know, you're not going to cut the line, and you got to respect your elders, and all this other stuff. I guess we're going to get elder abuse. That means a double or nothing. MVP has heard enough. MVP says, enough of this. He goes, you know what? You two teams take it to Collision, have a match, and whoever walks out of that match as the winners will get an AEW tag team title match against the Hurt Syndicate at Double or Nothing. And I just groaned. But then he says, I'm being told by somebody here at ringside, one of the producers, that we have to go to a commercial in 30 seconds. So he says, MJF, you need to come out here because you're going to get what you deserve. So that was a nice little hook, you know, tell people, look, we're going to commercial, but if you want to find out what's going to happen here with MJF, you better stick around. You better not tune out. So that was a nice hook to keep people tuned in. But just to go back to this whole Double or Nothing thing, you know, what I said earlier about how there's a lot of reasons why this card this year just feels very uninspired. This is one of those reasons. The idea of doing the Hurt Syndicate against Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. And look, there's nothing wrong with Dustin and Sammy as a team. They've been teaming for a while. They're the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. They're a fine team. We don't ever see them on Dynamite, but they're a fine team. The idea that we're going to get the Hurt Syndicate against them or the Hurt Syndicate against Lio Rush and Action Andretti is lame. If that's the Double or Nothing tag team title match, I'm sorry, that's lame. And even if there's a finish that necessitates a three-way and they all end up in the same match for the tag team titles at the pay-per-view, that's still lame. Like Lashley and Benjamin, again, they've gone through so many teams at this point that if this is what we end up with at one of their big pay-per-views here that they do, I'm sorry, but that's not really a match that gets me excited. As a wrestling match, I'm sure it'll turn out fine. You got some talented guys in there, but it's just very uninspired. And it kind of comes out of nowhere. The story is with the Hurt Syndicate and MJF. There is no story that ties any of these teams in any kind of meaningful way. I mean, I know the Crew, they've been sitting in the crowd and they've been teasing that they want a tag team title shot. So it's not like they just came out of nowhere, but like this match, whatever this match ends up being, feels that way. It just feels like it's coming out of nowhere. We have to give them a match. So we'll throw the Hurt Syndicate in there with these guys or in a three-way and they're going to win again. Okay, who cares? The story is with MJF. What's going to happen with him? What's going to happen next week? Nobody gives a shit about this. They come back from break. MVP orders MJF to come out to the ring. And MJF doesn't come out. So MVP sends Shelton Benjamin to the back. Benjamin runs to the back. And he goes to Gorilla where Tony Khan is sitting there. And Tony Khan stands up and he looks all too happy to rat out MJF. He's like, he's over here. He's over here. Because he's crouched down behind the table hiding. So then MJF pops his head up and he says, "Hey, I was just looking for you." And Benjamin grabs him and brings him out into the arena, brings him out to the ring. MJF looks like a guy here who is trying very hard not to piss his pants. And MVP says, "This is the moment of reckoning here. You asked for this. It was time for one final vote." So MVP gives the thumbs up. Then it's up to Shelton. Good old Benjamin Shelton. What is he going to vote for? And Shelton gives the thumbs up. MJF is very excited. And so we're back to Bobby Lashley. It's up to Bob. Does Bob want this man in this group or not? So he goes over and he grabs MJF. He pulls him to the center of the ring and he puts his arm around him and he puts his hand out, his thumb out, and he's teasing it out for so long. And what I loved about it is the more he teases it and teases it and teases it, you see in the background, Shelton Benjamin is teasing a super kick. Like he's positioned for a super kick because they want you to think he's about to throw one, but he never does. And then finally, Bobby Lashley gives the thumbs up. And MJF's eyes, it's like they bulge out of his skull. And it gets a big pop and everybody cheers. And MJ, God, I keep getting confused. MVP, MJF. So MJF, he leaps into the arms of Bobby Lashley, who shoves him off. And so MJF hops onto the ropes and he starts a "We Hurt People" chant. He's very excited. MVP said next week on Dynamite is going to be the official contract signing to bring MJF into the Hurt Syndicate. And he hugged them all. MJF did. Excalibur pointed out he wasn't sure that MJF celebrated this much when he won the AEW World title. Of course not. He didn't. He has been more excited about the potential of joining this group than anything else he has done in the 6 years that he has been in this company. Every single week. You would think that this is bigger than the World Championship to him. And also, this is the guy who was the longest reigning AEW World Champion of all time. And just the way that he acts around these men, it's very silly. Especially like this week, where he had that look in his eyes like he was terrified of what was about to happen. And I'm like, this guy he should be one of their top like 3 stars in the company. He's their former world champion. And he's out there. I get he's a heel and everything, but he's out there acting like a bitch. Like I said, it looked like he was going to piss his pants. So, I mean, that whole aspect to it is silly. But for 1 week anyway, MJF is in. He's in the Hurt Syndicate. I'm not even surprised that we got the thumbs up from Lashley because they really laid it on real heavy, wanting you to think that he was going to get his ass kicked tonight. The shirt that Lashley was wearing, some of the things that MVP was saying about how, you're going to get what you deserve. They wanted you to think that there was going to be a beatdown. And then they gave us the little swerve there. But I wasn't surprised by that. What I was surprised was that MJF didn't turn on them. And that could still happen. It could happen next week. Where MJF has his own plan because he's embarrassed and tired of being strung along for so many weeks. So now it doesn't even matter what answer they give him. He's got a bigger plan, and he's going to lower the boom on them. It didn't happen tonight. But like I said, it doesn't mean that it still can't happen. Whether it's next week or down the road. Now, there was another segment in the back later in the show. Very excited MJF was with MVP and Renee. And he says he feels like he just won the lottery. The only thing he needs to do, he just has to get his lawyer, smart Mark Sterling, to read through the contract. And this is news to MVP. You want your lawyer to do what? And MJF says he calls Sterling over. Mark Sterling is there. He calls him over. Sterling goes to shake MVP's hand. MVP uses his cane to push his hand back down. And MJF asks him, he goes, "What's wrong, Montel? Don't you ever use your lawyer to look over a contract to make sure that all the language is kosher?" And MVP says, "Yes, sure." And he plays it off like, "Yeah, okay, sure, no problem. No big deal." And everything's cool, and they walk off together. So clearly we are getting some shenanigans next week. The only question is, are we going to get Cedric Alexander next week in the Hurt Syndicate? Because I still fully believe he is going to be joining in the next few weeks. So it's supposed to be a contract signing for MJF. Do they do something where there is a contract signed, but it's not by MJF, it's by Cedric Alexander, and he joins the group? Or is it a case, like I said, where MJF is the one? This is all just a put on. And he's not signing the contract, but he's got something else up his sleeve. I don't know. I mean, I'm intrigued to see where it goes. And I'm just imagining the end result of this is MJF and Bobby Lashley in Texas. They haven't set anything else up for MJF for their biggest show of the year, their big stadium show. Everything seems to be leading to MJF against Lashley. I mean, I suppose it could be MJF and a partner against the Hurt Syndicate for the tag team titles. But MJF and Bobby Lashley seems to be the direction here. We had a 4-way eliminator match for the AEW Women's World Championship with timeless Toni Storm, the returning Skye Blue, who broke her leg. She broke her fibula, I think, last summer, and she was making her return here in her hometown of Chicago. Mina Shirakawa, who had new music. This was her first match as a full-time member of the AEW roster. She has left Stardom. She has moved out of Japan. She's moved to the U.S. So she's all in. She's full-time here now in this company. And rounding out the 4-way, the New Japan Strong Women's Champion Azumi, who beat Mina and Mercedes Moné to win the New Japan Strong Women's title last Friday at the New Japan Resurgence show. Did not pin Mercedes to win the title, pinned Mina, but Mercedes actually did lose one of her belts, shockingly enough, last week. It has been eliminator mayhem in this company over the last few weeks, especially with Toni Storm. They had another 4-way on the show last week that Toni won. So coming into this show, we still had no number one contender. I mean, she won the 4-way last week. She beat Lady Frost on Collision a couple of weeks ago. She beat Miyu, right? Miyu Yamashita a couple of weeks ago. So here we go. Another eliminator match involving Toni Storm. Mina and Azumi traded pinfall attempts. Skye Blue and Toni, they brawled on the floor. Mina landed a tornado DDT on Azumi on the floor. Toni and Skye Blue, they brawled their way back into the ring. Skye landed a flying head scissors and a tornado DDT of her own. Azumi entered the match, shoved Toni out of the ring, and then brawled with Skye Blue. So Mina and Toni, they hit stereo Luthez presses, and then they confronted each other. They traded strikes. Azumi entered the fray and landed a big kick on Mina. Mina came back with a DDT and then a figure four on Toni Storm. So she got to the ropes. She rolled out to the floor. Mina did a dive to the floor, took out Toni again, but Azumi was quick to capitalize, took her out with a dive of her own. Not to be left out, Skye Blue coming back from this devastating injury. She's going to dive. And she did. She dove out onto all three women on the floor. She came up okay, which is good. So Toni delivered a running hip attack to Skye Blue and to Mina back in the ring. This was after the commercial break. Azumi avoided one, and both she and Toni got sent to the floor. Mina recovered. She landed a kick on Skye Blue. Toni got back into the ring, landed a shotgun drop kick to Mina, a sky high on Skye Blue. Mina delivered some hook kicks to Toni and Skye Blue. Azumi returned and delivered a roundhouse kick to Skye Blue and then a destroyer. Toni had to break up the pin. So now we're coming to the finish here. Toni delivered Storm Zero to Azumi. Mina broke up the pin. And then Mina and Toni, they traded small packages when Mina scored the upset win over the champion. The same way, actually, that Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch's match ended at Backlash. And it was Lyra who got the roll-up win on Becky. So in this case, it was Mina who got the win over the champion. And after Mina won, because I mentioned when Mina came out that she had new entrance music. When Mina won the match here, they played her old Danza Kuduro ripoff theme, which she used to come out to, but she exited to the song here. So the song is not completely gone. So you know you've arrived when you have entrance music and you have exit music. It's like Mankind. When Mankind first came to the WWE, right? He had entrance music and then he had exit music. So when you get two themes, maybe that was written into her contract. Says, I want two themes. So this was good. This was actually a little bit better than the four-way last week. Toni and Mina went face-to-face, and then we saw the graphic up on the screen. They turned and looked, and it showed Toni and Mina, AEW Women's World Championship, Double or Nothing. That match has been confirmed. Meanwhile, Azumi was being helped to the back when she was attacked by Mercedes Moné, who then put her in a statement maker in the aisleway, and she was very upset over losing her strong women's title to her. Here comes Jamie Hayter. She runs out to make the save, and she applied a crossface momentarily. She was interrupted by security, who pulled her away from Mercedes. Mercedes against Azumi. What are we thinking about this? This could be a singles match at Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door is not for another 3 months. So, I mean, who the hell knows, but she seemed very angry. So maybe Mercedes and Azumi could be a match on that show. It's nice to see Skye Blue back, you know, from everything she said in interviews about the injury. She went through a bitch of a time trying to go through rehab and get healed up. She was a little rusty, which is to be expected. Like I said, they got Mina in now full time, which is great. I certainly have no issue with more Mina. More Mina is not a bad thing. But here's the thing that I have concerns about. She's immediately being vaulted into a women's world title match. And I feel like I just got done talking about this with Megan Bayne. Megan Bayne came in, and it took a little while longer, but not that much longer. Megan Bayne came in, and almost instantly, she was positioned as number one contender for Toni Storm. And they did that match at Dynasty, and then it was over. And she got beat. Now, they tried to protect her as best that they could. You know, and even now, I mean, she's still pretty protected. But they went right to the title match. And she didn't win the title. And it's like, you can't do that with everybody. Where when you get somebody back, or you get somebody in, and you debut them, that they immediately get a world championship match. And then they go and they do that exact thing with Mina. Only even worse, because this is Mina's first official match as a full-time member of the roster, And she pinned the women's world champion, and she's already getting a title match at Double or Nothing that she's not going to win. So she's going to lose to Toni Storm. And then what? I don't know. But I don't understand the need to bring her in, to bring her back, and then have her be the one that you rush immediately into a world title match. It's like they didn't learn from the Megan Bayne thing. I don't know why you would do that back to back like that with two different people. So that's my only concern there, but I'm happy to see her in. At least we'll get to see her on a more full-time basis, and we'll see if that influences Mariah May's decision, because Mariah May has a decision to make. Does she want to stay or does she want to leave? Mina's one of her best friends. Does that matter to her? Is that going to influence her decision enough to stay and sign a contract for multiple years to stay in this company just to work with people like Mina? Or is her mind made up, and is she WWE bound as soon as she's free and clear? I don't know if it's going to make a difference, but it could. It's always possible. Roderick says, I don't know why they couldn't do a Toni Megan rematch. Because she just would have lost again. That's the reason why. They protected her as best they could, and then they moved on because they did not want to beat her clean. If they just did the match again, like it looked like after that 4-way last week, like they could potentially be setting up for a rematch, but maybe one where Penelope Ford was involved. And that way you could have Penelope Ford take the pin and still protect Megan. But I don't know what's gained by keeping up with her and Toni. And if she's not going to win, then what the hell's the point? Unless she's going to win at some point, I don't really see the point in continuously doing that. So that's why I guess they moved on, but they didn't have to go to it that quickly. Now, Excalibur introduced a video package dedicated to the late Sabu. They cut to the announce desk live, and they happened to have somebody at the announce desk who was very good friends with Sabu, worked with him, wrestled him, knew him very well. The two of them were two of the big faces and franchise players for years in the original ECW. And that, of course, is Taz. And they kind of gave him the floor, and he spoke about, his days in ECW with Sabu. He said, I hope I could keep it together, and I hope I could get through this. He said Sabu was a machine. His work ethic was off the charts. He was larger than life. He says he had aura. He was aura before aura was cool. And he barely kept it together. I mean, he was trying very hard. He took his sunglasses off midway through, and you could see, like, he was about to fall apart, talking about losing his friend. And at the very end, he pointed up at the sky like Sabu would do. Excalibur did the same. Ian Riccaboni did the same. It was actually a very nice tribute to him. Very well done. They're also doing a tribute to Steve Mongo McMichael on Collision this weekend, which I don't know if they taped it tonight. I think they are. I think they're taping Collision tonight to air on Saturday. Mongo, of course, former Chicago Bear. So Chicago is the right place to be doing something like that. I think they said Ric Flair is in town as well. So he'll be involved in that tribute in some way. Which, again, it's very nice of them to be doing that. WWE, I know he wasn't a big WWE guy, although he did have involvement briefly in the company there. And they did acknowledge it on their website. I don't think they acknowledged it at all on their show. And obviously, Mongo never worked for AEW, but it's very cool of them to be doing something for him. After a commercial break, Tony Schiavone was in the ring with Nigel McGuinness standing next to him. Tony and Nigel, they're broadcast partners on Collision every single week. And Nigel apologized to Tony for getting into the ring last week on Collision, which is something that he told Schiavone he should never do, because Schiavone did that recently with FTR, and he's like, you shouldn't do that. You have no business being in the ring. He was saving his partner. But there's someone else he needs to apologize to. Daniel Garcia then makes his way down to the ring. Now, this, for those of you who don't know, what the hell's going on here? This is a Collision angle. So if you are not watching Collision, this is basically playing out each week on the Saturday show. If you don't watch Collision, you have no fucking idea what's going on here. So that's, if you're looking at this and you're basically, you're a Dynamite guy and you're like, wait, what? Nigel's in the ring. What? Daniel Garcia? What's going on here? You are not alone. So McGinnis said he let his ego get the best of him, but he realizes his place is at the announce desk with Toni, and it's never going to happen again. Won't happen again. So Garcia said McGinnis could keep his apology because FTR disrespected him and he stood up for himself. FTR tried to end Adam Copeland's career. They tried to end Daniel Garcia's career and possibly McGinnis's career. Garcia will do this with or without him, but it would be an honor for McGinnis to fight with him side by side. Here comes Stokely Hathaway. He walks out alone, says FTR is not here tonight, but he's here to speak on their behalf because he is their new agent. What McGinnis did last week was reprehensible because he nearly broke Dax Harwood's jaw and dislocated Cash Wheeler's shoulder, asking, what is McGinnis's problem? What's your deal? And McGinnis mockingly said that he's so sorry. Hathaway said that doesn't work for them. When you do something bad, there's consequences for your actions. FTR and Hathaway, they spoke, and they agreed the punishment for McGinnis should be to get in the ring with FTR in a match. So that way they're not held responsible or accountable for injuring him. McGinnis said that's why he doesn't want to wrestle them. They're 10-time champions. He's barely even had a conversation with Daniel Garcia. They would get killed. Garcia said McGinnis has overcome the odds his whole career, something that Garcia has had to do as well. Hathaway said McGinnis can continue sitting at the announce desk being the Al Bundy of AEW. But what makes him think that he can beat FTR? What makes you think that you can beat FTR when you barely beat hepatitis? And Nigel dropped the mic after that comment. FTR sneak attacked from behind. They laid out Garcia with a shatter machine as McGinnis was about to get dropped with a spike pile driver when Daddy Magic, Matt Menard, comes out with a crowbar. And FTR and Stokely Hathaway, they sprint away. Crowd didn't react much to this. Neither did I. I don't give a shit about any of this. I really don't. I thought this segment was no good because I'm not into this. I don't care about any of this. I've been following bits and pieces of it. I'm basically aware, like surface level aware of what's going on here, but I'm not so deeply, entrenched in this storyline and engrossed in what they're doing here that I can't wait to see what's next. Like, I don't give a shit. I just don't. And so I guess what they're setting up for is Nigel and Garcia, I guess, against FTR, double or nothing, even though Nigel, he didn't agree to that, but I don't know why they would pitch it unless the plan is to do it. And, Nigel in there working against FTR, the wrestling will be fine. There'll be some good wrestling, but I can't bring myself to care about this. I'm sorry. This was no good. Then we have the main event. Steel cage match. For the first time in AEW history, the AEW World title is being contested inside of a steel cage. And it's Samoa Joe challenging Jon Moxley. Joe wasted no time slamming Moxley into the cage, delivering headbutt after headbutt before a charging boot. Joe dropped an elbow. Moxley rolled to the corner, flipped off Joe. And that little bit of distance was enough for Moxley to kick the leg out. He delivered a chop block. Figure 4 is applied. Joe reverses it, though, which causes Moxley to have to release the hold. Moxley was busted open badly during the commercial break. They come back, just blood everywhere, and Joe's got blood on him as well. They're slugging it out from their knees. Moxley's biting at Joe's head. Claudio and Wheeler Yuta, they join Marina Shafir cage side. As Willow Nightingale and Powerhouse Hobbs, they also make their way down to be in the corner of Samoa Joe. Moxley tried climbing the cage. Joe cut him off. And Taz said that Moxley looks like he got hit in the face with a bazooka because he is just bleeding buckets at this point. Joe sank in a crossface. Moxley got the ropes. Why is there a rope break? Can you explain this to me? Why is there a rope break in a no disqualification cage match? Why is there a rope break here? I don't know. Joe wanted a muscle buster, but Moxley bit at the face, rolled out of the corner into multiple lariats. Joe managed a big boot. Moxley, though, exploded into a cutter for 2 as Moxley transitioned into a cross arm breaker attempt. There was a bulldog choke that was applied. Joe started to fade. The arm, though, would not drop for the 3rd time. The arm was still up. Brother, he's still showing signs of life, dude. Joe is still in it. Starts to hulk up. Moxley spiked him with a paradigm shift. Joe kicked out. Moxley wanted another one. Joe spun out into a coquina clutch. Claudio now is scaling the cage. Willow Nightingale stops him. Yuta got chokeslammed. On the other side of the ring, Yuta gets chokeslammed through a table outside by Powerhouse Hobbs. That got a big pop. And with Joe's attention turned, we see somebody in a hoodie who's not identifiable, right? Actually, when I first glanced at this person in this hoodie, you know who I thought it was? I thought it was Oni Lorcan. You remember Oni Lorcan from NXT? That's who I thought it was initially, but it wasn't him. But there was somebody in a hoodie who slides the briefcase that supposedly has the AEW World title into the cage, and Moxley hits Joe in the head with it. He covers him, and he gets the tainted victory to retain the World Championship. And then the person in the hoodie reveals themselves to be Gabe Kidd from New Japan Pro Wrestling. The same Gabe Kidd who had that incredible match at Wrestle Kingdom earlier this year with Kenny Omega. Hobbs is stalking Gabe up the ramp until Claudio smacks him in the back with a chair. Hobbs no-sells it, slowly turns around, but he turns away from Gabe Kidd, which was a very stupid thing to do, and Kidd hits a low blow. And the two of them sent Hobbs crashing into the ring steps. Willow, meanwhile, gets driven into the barricade by Marina Shafir. The Young Bucks music hits. Great. So here comes Matt and Nick Jackson. They're applauding all the chaos on their way to the ring. Kidd helps up Moxley, and the Bucks were about to shake their hands when Kenny Omega's music hits. Omega sprints out, lays out Wheeler Yuta with a V-trigger on the ramp, sends Claudio into the barricade. Kazuchika Okada appears, though, and he delivers a forearm shot to the midsection of Omega, the surgically repaired midsection of Kenny Omega, and he sends him into the cage. Well, into the ring. I should say that Matt Jackson had like a remote device in his hand, and they began to lower the cage back down. So now the cage is being lowered. That leaves Joe and Omega locked inside with the Death Riders, with Gabe Kidd, with the Bucks. Okada didn't make it into the cage. He got chased away by Speedball Mike Bailey, which we barely even saw. The Bucks hit Omega with an EVP trigger, and Moxley followed with a paradigm shift. They choked out Omega. Death Riders put the boots to Joe. Now we hear Swerve Strickland's music, and he makes his way out with Prince Nana. He scales the cage, and he delivers a swerve stomp onto the pile from the top of the cage, and everybody falls down. The Bucks run away. He has to raise the cage first, and now the Bucks run away. The Death Riders follow suit. Swerve gets a mic, and he says the last time he was in this city, and he was inside of a cage, he got his brains beat in. He didn't mention the syringe to the mouth. But here he is again. He realized he is the most dangerous man in AEW, and they all want to cause a little anarchy. Double or nothing, anarchy in the arena. So there it is. The challenge is laid out, and that's how they went off the air. It was the finish that you would expect. You can't be upset at the fact that, oh my God, there was tons of interference in the finish. Because what other finish did you expect in this match? Seriously, what other outcome would you have expected in this match? Somebody was going to get, at least one person was going to get involved, if not multiple people. And it was going to be completely ridiculous and overbooked. Right? I mean, that's what you had out there. You had Claudio. You had Claudio. And you had Marina Shafir. And you had Wheeler Yuta. And then you had Willow. And then you had Hobbs. And then you had Gabe Kidd. The Bucks came out after the match was over. So you had tons of interference here. Jon Moxley was not losing the AEW World title. So I can't even be upset about it. Like, I'm just sort of numb to it at this point. Like, when I see Moxley and the Death Riders, I know bullshit will follow. And I know he's not losing the championship until July. So I can't even be mad about it. It's just the same, Death Riders nonsense that you would expect. And so that's exactly what they gave us here in this finish. And then Anarchy in the Arena, they do it every year, Double or Nothing. So I knew it was coming. They had to announce something. We're less than 2 weeks away from this show. I didn't even mind all the chaos at the very end. The crowd was loud for... The thing I'll say about what they did here, Swerve Strickland lost the AEW World title in August, right? He lost it to Bryan Danielson. They have done a good job of trying to make sure that Swerve does not just fall back into like the mid-card or even like the upper mid-card where he just kind of fades into the background, that he's involved in a bunch of things that really don't matter. Like, you don't even have to be excited over what AEW is doing right now with its main angle. It's hard to get excited for it. It is. It's hard. Like the Death Riders, it just sucks. So it's hard to get excited for it. But he's smack dab in the middle of it. It is their top angle. And he was positioned here. Not even Omega. Like, he was positioned here, coming out when he did, doing the big swerve stomp off the top, cutting the promo, issuing the challenge to the Anarchy match. Like, he's the guy. Like, he's the key babyface here, outside of whoever is going to win the Owen and then actually beat Moxley to win the title. I think it should have been Swerve, but it wasn't. But he's still right there. So they've done a good job, at least, of trying to keep him well positioned. And I do think he'll be, champion again one day. Now we have to see what the configuration of this match is going to be. Is it going to be 5-on-5? Is it going to be 6-on-6? Are the women going to be involved? It felt like the women were positioned to be involved in this match, is what it felt like to me. They were smack dab in the middle of all this. So when I look at what the makeup of the teams might be on the babyface side, I'm looking at Kenny Omega as 1. Swerve would be 2. Joe is 3. Hobbs is 4. Willow would be 5. So if you're going to do 5-on-5, there's your 5. Unless they want to have Shibata in there, that's 6. Because I look at the heel side and there's more heels. You got Moxley, Claudio. You've got Gabe Kidd now, who, again, fought the Bucks last Friday in New Japan. And now they're all on the same side together, which is a little fucking weird. But I guess Gabe Kidd is, Pac's replacement? Because Pac is hurt. So maybe, in effect, he ends up being Pac's replacement. At least, I'm not saying he's like a permanent new member of the Death Riders, but even if just for this match, seems like that might be the case. Marina Shafir. So again, I don't know if it's 5-on-5 or 6-on-6, but I say throw the women in there. Let Marina Shafir and Willow be a part of it. There's no reason for them not to be. But at least now we have a little more clarity on what the match is going to be, and we have 4 matches instead of 2. Honestly, this Double or Nothing show does not need more than 7 or 8 matches. We've only got 4 officially announced. We know the Hurt Syndicate will defend their tag team titles. We just don't know against who. So that'll be 5. And you add 3 more, you're good to go. You really don't need more than that. And I'm not naive enough to think that Toni is going to leave it there. With the pre-show, we'll end up with fucking 13 or 14 matches. It'll be a 5.5-hour show. But like 8 matches, really all you need. And I'm not even entirely sure what all the other ones are going to be. But the show is less than 2 weeks away, so come Collision on Saturday, we should have at least one more added. I mean, they did tease, Nigel and Garcia against FTR, which, again, I personally don't care, but story-wise, I guess that would make sense. And we'll see. But just this, I don't know, this Double or Nothing card, like, I'm really looking forward to the Owen matches. That's going to be really great, especially on the men's side. But as Double or Nothing shows go, I'm very uninspired. Just going into it, one of the weaker build-ups they've ever done for a Double or Nothing show. And sometimes you go into a show like that and then the show itself blows you away. I mean, God knows, when it comes to pay-per-views, traditionally, it hasn't always been the case in the last few months, but traditionally AEW usually knocks it out of the park, with their key shows. So it may end up being one of those situations where, as far as like the build, I'm like, eh. And then the show comes and it just, they hit a grand slam. That's what I'm hoping for. But I'd be lying to you if I sat here and said that, man, this is the most excited I've been for a Double or Nothing in years. Like, yeah, no, I'd be lying to you if I said that. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll. What did you think of Dynamite Beach Break? 35% thumbs up for tonight's show. 24.8% thumbs in the middle. And 40% thumbs down for Beach Break. I guess no one's taking a dip in the pool, huh? No one wants to go swimming in the water. Well, good. That means that there's more space for me to swim around here because I'm taking a dip in the pool. The water is nice and warm. It's a cool 65 degrees. But it's trending warmer. Let's take a look at your super chats. Here for this Beach Break episode of Dynamite. Got to get in a summer mood here. I gotta get my beach body ready. We're not quite there yet. Summer is still 5 weeks away. Shout out to Hannah. I know Hannah chimed in also on TNT last night. Hannah says, would you ever do the Dynamite review with JD on Wednesdays? You two have such an awesome dynamic, and I feel like you bring him a sense of calmness. I've been told that, but no, he's got his on his platform. I've got mine on mine. And I don't think he likes to swim anyway. So I'm hitting the beach, and he could do his thing. I go to the beach alone. Crypto and poker. My anniversary is May 7th, and my son's named Owen. That's very cool. Well, May 7th, Owen Hart would have been 60 years old. Hey, Ace of Masta came in with a $50 super chat before I went live tonight. Says, going to have to rely on Solomonster for AEW recaps for a while. This Julian Barr syndrome has greatly affected my eyes, and I am unable to watch movies, wrestling, or play video games without them hurting. Hoping they'll be able to recover someday. Well, that's terrible. I'm sorry that you're going through that. I had a friend who had Julian Barr syndrome. It's not fun. So I do hope that gets better, but I am here doing these recaps every week, so you always know you can rely on me to keep you posted on what's going on. Jerome Eugenio says, good show. Yeah, I thought it was solid. Not the best Dynamite, but it was solid. Yo-Yo Sup. I know that's an unacceptable opinion for some people because they'll lose their fucking minds, but tough shit. Yo-Yo says, was at the show tonight. My first ever. Great atmosphere, great wrestling. I had an awesome time. Not sure how it came off on TV, but a great crowd. Yeah, it was a bigger crowd than some of the ones they've had recently. What they had, between 4,000 and 5,000? You could tell it was a bigger building than some of the ones they've been in, like the one last week. So, I mean, it looked like they had a decent crowd there tonight. Oz and Glory, by the way, we are lagging on the likes. So, we're about, what is that? 50 or so away from Be the Booker? I don't know. Better hurry up and get those likes up. Oz and Glorious says, really fun episode of Dynamite tonight. Hilarious that Tony Khan immediately switched Mina's music back due to online complaints. I don't know if that's what he did or not. It could just be that, you know, they decided that they'll have that music for her exit and they'll have different music for her entrance. I don't know what decision they made. Hey, Moore says, Tony versus Mina confirms Mariah is returning at Double or Nothing. Well, it confirms no such thing. Could it happen? Sure, it could happen. But I don't think it confirms anything with Mariah. Yo-Yo says, at the arena right now, I see a Solomonster sign. They're everywhere. That's very cool. We had a Solomonster sign last week. Moore says Mariah has also been tweeting about Mina nonstop. She's been tweeting photos of herself holding the AEW Women's title, and she's been tweeting about Mina. So yes, that is true. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not guaranteed that Mariah is coming back just because Mina's back. Joseph Stewart, buy or sell, the Addams Family or the Munsters? The Munsters. Also says, who was Sabu's greatest rival in ECW? I don't know. I mean, do you think Taz is a fair pick? There might be some more ECW diehards who can speak to that better than I can, but I might go Taz on that. Duff's Vids says, Queen of the Ring available for purchase on Apple TV, YouTube, Google, and Fandango for $19.99. Rent available July 31st. So there it is. If you missed Queen of the Ring and you want to check it out, there's your chance to check it out. Joseph Stewart, buy or sell, heel Shawn Michaels from 1992 to 95 or heel Shawn Michaels from 1997 to 1998. Heel Shawn Michaels in 1997 was just on another level. So I have to go 1997, Sean. Do you think Dan Severn could have been a big star in WWE? I mean, he could have been booked like a bigger star. He could have been treated like a bigger deal. But do I think he would have stuck and gotten over like big as a top star in the company? I don't. I don't think he was a good fit for WWE. And the way Vince booked, he was very vanilla. He was very plain Jane. I just don't think it would have worked out either way. Tuxedo T. Servo, my youngest daughter graduated college this past weekend. One's up for the middle school science teachers. There you go. One's up. Ace of Master, they took a break from the beach. I guess so. There was nothing, there was nothing about this show with the set or the location or the theme of the show or anything about the show that screamed beach break. Like, I don't know why they chose this show this week in Chicago to call it beach break. It flummoxed me. I don't quite understand that. Ed Swoggle. Dude, you have to admit, I'm doing a better job with this stream of making this like a beach break show than AEW did with their actual beach break show tonight. Ed Swoggle, what did Devon tell Bubba when they were working at McDonald's together? Oh, my brother, test the fries. Thanks for all you do for us, sir. Thank you, Ed Swoggle. You're very welcome. No Cap. What is Ospreay's deal with trashing WWE in ring work? He needs to focus on bringing in more fans in the arenas and viewership. Yeah, I mean, all these interviews that he's been doing lately, and maybe he's being asked the question, but he's taking the bait and answering them, and people are grabbing headlines from these interviews that are focused on what he is saying about WWE, so it makes it sound like all he's going around talking about is WWE. I tend to agree. They got some big shows coming up. You know, you got to focus on those. Nikolai Cage, buy or sell. Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné against Io Sky and Tiffany Stratton. I mean, I'd buy on that. I think that'd be a great match. Sean D says, whatever Mox's team is, could have been feuding with the Hurt Syndicate, and that could have been cool, but no. We aren't allowed fun. Fun and the Death Riders are just two things that don't go together. I don't care who they're in the ring with. Blue Jay, gearing up for EDC in Vegas with some wrestling stuff. We'll have fun. Bret Hart, I was thinking that MJF could not betray the Hurt Syndicate, but instead he makes Lashley and Shelton loyal to him, and they end up kicking MVP out. I don't know where you're getting that from. You could think that, but that's absolutely not what's going to happen. Terry's Odyssey, thank you for the 20. No message. She's just dropping some support. I appreciate that. Bret Hart says buy or sell. Steve Austin's Solid Ass Cats, Poncho and Macho, or Bret Hart's Smokey the Cat. I did enjoy it when Bret would mention his cat in those WCW promos. But I got to go Steve Austin's Solid Ass Cats, man. I live for these updates on Poncho and Macho on Instagram. Arabian Night, what if the title match for All In is Hurt Syndicate against MJF and the man he once had a contract with, Wardlow? I don't see FTR getting belts in time for Texas. Well, I mean, given that they're not wrestling the Hurt Syndicate at Double or Nothing, I agree. It doesn't seem likely. I don't even bring up Wardlow anymore because I brought him up before in scenarios and then nothing ever happens. So I don't know if he's still out with an injury. I honestly, I have no idea what his status is. His career completely stalled out. And I don't know if he's going to be back or not. I wish him well, but he's not factoring into any plans that I'm like imagining or ideas that I'm coming up with, because what's the point? I couldn't even tell you the last time he was on TV. I have no idea. Was he on TV at all last year? Or was it 2023 the last time I don't remember. I guess the end of 2023 is when they did the Devil angle, right? And he was part of that. So yeah, I mean, the last time we saw Wardlow had to be March or April probably of last year, right? Because that was when he won the whatever it was, gauntlet match, I guess, and he had the title match with Joe. I think that was March of last year. Big business in Boston. And it wasn't long after that, I think he got hurt, he disappeared, and that was the end of that. So whatever. What could have been? The average grunt. I mean, to be fair, there's nothing that says you can't have a no DQ match with rope breaks. You just can't do the 5 count to break it, obviously. Kiddo Hudson, what is the AEW premiere show? Double or Nothing, All Out, or All In? Now it's All In. Oz and Glorious, Tony Khan straight up confirmed on Twitter that he switched Mina's music back because people were flipping out. So he tweeted that. So he reacted in real time and changed her music back because people were tweeting and complaining about it. But people complain about various booking aspects of the show every week and nothing changes. I've been complaining about the Death Riders for months. If I knew it was that easy, I would have tweeted him. Fucking hell. too late now. The average grunt. The referee simply has to remind them that they won't count the pin or call for the submission if the opponent is in the ropes. Jeremy Dyer, are you excited about the new Superman movie? No, I could care less. The Juliet, thoughts on The Miz hosting American Gladiators reboot? I'm happy for him. And the average grunt, have you seen Punk's recent Saudi backpedal? I have not. But once he came back to the company, you knew he was going to be on the Saudi shows at some point. I mean, that much seemed pretty clear. You hear the birds. It's a beautiful day here, beach break. Like I said, it's more of a beach break here on the Sound Off than it was on Dynamite tonight. Anyway, 387 likes ain't going to do it. We will try again on Friday for Be the Booker when we talk about SmackDown. That will be on Friday night. Don't forget here that I'm going to be live on YouTube tomorrow. Should be interesting at noon Eastern. Appearing on Wrestle Purists live on YouTube talking pro wrestling. So if you can join live. If you have any questions, you could submit them. Should be fun hanging out with Montel there on the Wrestle Purists channel. Good stuff. Colin C. The fact that Top Flight are almost exactly half the age of the Hurt Syndicate is insane. Well, when you look at the Hurt Syndicate, because, Lashley and Benjamin, I know Benjamin is like 48. Lashley's probably around the same age. I mean, these guys, they don't age. They don't age. It's unbelievable. Dark Effect, in one-on-one matches, who are two people that you would love to see wrestle Prime Brett and Shawn? Well, I mean, I've said before, Bret Hart and Kurt. We got Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle. But I would have loved to have seen what Bret and Kurt could do. If we had Prime Bret and Prime Kurt, that would have been phenomenal. And as far as Shawn, Shawn and AJ Styles would have been fantastic. But you could put Shawn in there with almost any modern star of any real significance. Prime Shawn Michaels and Will Ospreay of today. Imagine that. Prime Shawn Michaels and modern day Will Ospreay. How's that for a match? But honestly, you could take him and put him in there against almost anybody. It would have been unbelievable. There's Dark Effects 5. So, Solo on the beach with the cabana. I got my cabana. My cabana's over there. It's further down the beach. When I get out of here, I'm walking down the beach. I'm going to my cabana. I've got my drink waiting for me with the little umbrella in it.
It's the amazing Gunther. Jerry Lawler loves Gunther the Magnificent. All hail Gunther.
We got a Gunther. Even Gunther is hitting the beach tonight. Says, remember kids, taking shots at a company is wrong unless you work for the 3 letters that I like. Isn't that the mentality of wrestling fans on the internet? If you don't like the company that they like at all times, then you're a hater. Oh my goodness. These people, they ain't right in the head. Fire Panda, thank you, as always. Pina Colada? No, I'm thinking maybe mango gin and tonic. Yeah, I had one of those in Chicago. It was actually very good. Maybe a mango gin and tonic, just to change things up a little bit. I think that would be fun. Well, I do see now that we are currently at 410 likes. So there was a mad rush here at the very end. So I see my cabana now is going to have to wait. My drink is going to get warm. My Mai Tai. Because now we must be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen,
hey, look, Joe is dressed like me.
To be the booker.
He stole my look. This bastard. All right, well, we get one round. So let's make it count. Let's make it count, shall we? Tag team be the booker. No, this is not how I wanted to start. We got Fandango and Tyler Breeze. Breezango is kicking us off here. Solo joins the Ops. Well, look, I mean, Hook is still out. And I got about as many muscles on me as he does. So, I mean, you know, you just kind of slip me in there and I poof my hair out a little bit and you would never know that it's not Hook. Breezango against Darby Allin and Sting. You know what? Can't vote against the Stinger, man. You don't get that many matches with him. Can't vote against the Stinger. All right, women's be the booker. Here we go. We are going to begin with Luna Vachon. She's crazy. She's not all there. This is going to be a crazy match. Luna Vachon against Queen Zelina, who also happens to be the reigning Women's United States Champion. If we let Luna work, put her in there with Zelina, they could have a good match. We just never really got to see Luna work very often in WWE, or when she did, she was in there to put somebody else over. One more match. We have Chad Gable in the main event. Not a place that he's terribly familiar with, but arguably a place where I think he belongs. But it all comes down to the right opponent. Doesn't it always? Chad Gable against Al Snow and Head. So close, yet so far away. Casper the Tryhard had to put on some shades to look at my screen. Yeah, I mean, it's bright, man. It's definitely different than it was in New York. Fucking raining all day. It's supposed to rain, I think, every day for the next few days. I wish I was on this beach right now. I need a vacation is what I need. So this is my vacation. Remember when Al Bundy on Married with Children went on vacation and he set up like a fucking fence around his couch and told his family not to bother him? This is my vacation. I'm in my beach gear. I got my towel. I got my cabana in the other room. This is as close to a vacation as I'm going to get. I'm going to enjoy what little bit I can. Well, thank you for hanging out with me here tonight. I'm headed for the beach. I will see you guys tomorrow at noon Eastern on the Wrestle Purists YouTube channel for the first time. And on Friday night after SmackDown, we'll talk about WWE and everything that happens on the show on Friday night. And then this weekend is episode 913 of the Solomonster Sounds Off as I play catch up with Dark Side of the Ring. I will have my review on the Eddie Gilbert episode and hopefully also the Billy Jack Haynes one. I watched the episode on the original Sheik. It was very eerie, seeing Sabu all over it, talking, given what just happened. So I'll have a review on that. I don't know when. I don't know. I want to do 3 in one weekend, but we'll be a little behind, but we will cover all the remaining episodes. So we'll cover that and all the news of the week. Be well. Stay safe. Make sure you put on some suntan lotion. I forgot to put some on my nose. I got to go get some sunscreen and put it on my nose. I'm already getting burned up out here. I'll see you guys back here on Friday night for the SmackDown recap. Hey, Devin from NJ, you get the last word. Buy or sell. Better Canadian love-hate relationship, Edge and Christian or Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. See? See how easy that was? I'll see you guys on Friday.
MB.com.
We can do it like we do.